8.3 Stephen Hawking. Warming up. 1. Get into pairs and match the prominent personalities with the disabilities they had. The prominent personalities are John Milton, Beethoven, Stephen Hawking, Walt Disney, Albert Einstein, Thomas Edison, Helen Keller, Sudha Chandran, Tanai Gray Thompson, Franklin Roosevelt. Their disabilities are the great German composer and musician who became deaf at the age of 28 years, the great English poet who became blind at the age of 43 years, an American entrepreneur, animator, voice actor had learning disability, famous scientist of the 20th century who is paralyzed, great inventor who has over 1,000 patents had learning disability and became deaf. Great 20th century scientist and noted physicist had learning disability. Dancer whose legs had to be amputated because of an accident, was blind and deaf, had polio and was elected as the President of the United States for 4 terms, is a wheelchair racer. Now we will match. John Milton. He was the great English poet who became blind at the age of 43 years. So this is 1. Beethoven, the great German composer and musician who became deaf at the age of 28 years. So this is 2. Stephen Hawking. Famous scientist of the 20th century who is paralyzed. So this is 3. Walt Disney. An American entrepreneur, animator, voice actor had learning disability. So this is 4. Albert Einstein. Great 20th century scientist and noted physicist had learning disability. So this is 5. Thomas Edison, great inventor who has over 1,000 patents, had learning disability and became deaf. So this is 6. Helen Keller was blind and deaf. So this is 7. Sudha Chandran, dancer whose legs had to be amputated because of an accident. So this is 8. Tanai Gray Thompson is a wheelchair racer. This is 9. Franklin Roosevelt had polio and was elected as the President of the United States for 4 terms. So this is 10. Now, 2. Word building. Reduplication. 2. Word building. Reduplication. The root or stem of a word is repeated exactly the same or with a slight change. For example, tweet tweet, pitter patter, chit chat, bang bang, riff raff. Blending. Parts of 2 or more words combine to form a new one. For example, breakfast plus lunch is equal to brunch. Smoke plus fog is equal to smog. Motor plus hotel is equal to motel. C. Clipping. Reducing a word to one of its syllables or a part of it. For example, mathematics, maths. Advertisement, ad. Laboratory, lab. Acronym. Words formed from the first letter of each of the words involved. For example, radar, scuba, UNICEF, NASA. BBC, CAD, USA, ATM, VIP. DOB, KYC, PM, GN, TY, etc. In your book, write 5 examples of each of the above types of word building devices. You may take the help of a dictionary or internet. So, for reduplication, you can write the words bow wow, hee ha, cheep cheep, chomp chomp, ping pong. For blending, you can write the words carjack, cineplex, infotainment, internet, netizen. For clipping, you can write the words exam, gym, flu, gas, memo. For acronym, you can write laser, CD-ROM.
Stephen Hawking, the 8th of January 1942, he is an English theoretical physicist, cosmologist, author and director of research at the Center of Theoretical Cosmology within the Cambridge University. Hawking was the first to set out a theory of cosmology explained by a union of the general theory of relativity and quantum machines. Hawking is an honorary Fellow of the Royal Society of Arts FRSA, a lifetime member of the Pontifical Academy of Sciences, and a recipient of the Presidential Medal of Freedom, the highest civilian award in the U.S. This lesson gives us an insight about the great scientist, his life and his works. Stephen Hawking. Stephen Hawking, born January 8, 1942, is a British scientist, professor and author who has done groundbreaking work in physics and cosmology, and whose books have helped to make science accessible to everyone. At the age of 21, while studying cosmology at the University of Cambridge, he was diagnosed with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis (ALS). Part of his life story was depicted in the 2014 film The Theory of Everything. Over the years, Stephen Hawking has written or co-written a total of 15 books. A few of the most noteworthy include: in 1988, Hawking catapulted to international prominence with the publication of A Brief History of Time. The short, informative book became an account of cosmology for the masses and offered an overview of space and time, the existence of God and the future. The work was an instant success, spending more than 4 years atop the London Sunday Times bestseller list. Since its publication, it has sold millions of copies worldwide and been translated into more than 40 languages. A Brief History of Time also wasn't as easy to understand as some had hoped. So in 2001, Hawking followed up his book with The Universe in a Nutshell, which offered a more illustrated guide to cosmology's big theories. In 2005, Hawking authored the even more accessible A Briefer History of Time, which further simplified the original work's core concepts and touched upon the newest developments in the field like string theory. Together these 3 books, along with Hawking's own research and papers, articulate the physicist's personal search for science's holy grail. A single unifying theory that can combine cosmology, the study of the big, with quantum mechanics, the study of the small, to explain how the universe began. It's this kind of ambitious thinking that has allowed Hawking, who claims he can think in 11 dimensions, to lay out some big possibilities for humankind. He's convinced that time travel is possible, and that humans may indeed colonize other planets in the future. In September 2010, Hawking spoke against the idea that God could have created the universe in his book The Grand Design. Hawking previously argued that belief in a creator could be compatible with modern scientific theories. His new work, however, concluded that the Big Bang was the inevitable consequence of the laws of physics and nothing more. Because there is a law such as gravity, the universe can and will create itself from nothing, Hawking said. The Grand Design was Hawking's first major publication in almost a decade. The universe exists within his new work. Hawking set out to challenge Sir Isaac Newton's belief that the universe had to have been designed by God, simply because it could not have been born from chaos. It is not necessary to invoke God to light the blue touch paper and set the universe going, Hawking said. At the age of 21, Stephen Hawking was diagnosed with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis (ALS), or Lou Gehrig's disease. In a very simple sense, the nerves that controlled his muscles were shutting down. At the time, doctors gave him 2.5 years to live. Hawking first began to notice problems with his physical health while he was at Oxford. On occasion he would trip and fall, or slur his speech. He didn't look into the problem until 1963, during his first year at Cambridge. For the most part, Hawking had kept these symptoms to himself. But when his father took notice of the condition, he took Hawking to see a doctor. For the next 2 weeks, the 21-year-old college student made his home at a medical clinic, where he underwent a series of tests. They took a muscle sample from my arm, stuck electrodes into me, and injected some radio-opaque fluid into my spine, and watched it going up and down with X-rays, as they tilted the bed, he once said. After all that, they didn't tell me what I had, except that it was not multiple sclerosis, and that I was an atypical case. Eventually, however, doctors did diagnose Hawking with the early stages of ALS. It was devastating news for him and his family, but a few events prevented him from becoming completely despondent. The first of these came while Hawking was still in the hospital. There, he shared a room with a boy suffering from leukemia. Relative to what his roommate was going through, Hawking later reflected, his situation seemed more tolerable. Not long after he was released from the hospital, Hawking had a dream that he was going to be executed. He said this dream made him realize that there were still things to do with his life. In a sense, Hawking's disease helped him become the noted scientist he is today. Before the diagnosis, Hawking hadn't always focused on his studies. Before my condition was diagnosed, I had been very bored with life, he said. There had not seemed to be anything worth doing. With the sudden realization that he might not even live long enough to earn his PhD, as physical control over his body diminished, he'd be forced to use a wheelchair by 1969, the effects of his disease started to slow down. Over time, however, Hawking's ever-expanding career was accompanied by an ever-worsening physical state. By the mid-1970s, the Hawking family had taken in one of Hawking's graduate students to help manage his care and work. He could still feed himself and get out of bed, but virtually everything else required assistance. In addition, his speech had become increasingly slurred, so that only those who knew him well could understand him. In 1985 he lost his voice for good following a tracheotomy. The resulting situation required 24-hour nursing care for the acclaimed physicist. It also put in peril Hawking's ability to do his work. The predicament caught the attention of a California computer programmer, who had developed a speaking program that could be directed by head or eye movement. The invention allowed Hawking to select words on a computer screen that were then passed through a speech synthesizer. At the time of its introduction, Hawking, who still had use of his fingers, selected his words with a handheld clicker. Today, with virtually all control of his body gone, Hawking directs the program through a cheek muscle attached to a sensor. Through the program, and the help of assistants, Stephen Hawking has continued to write at a prolific rate. His work has included numerous scientific papers, of course, but also information for the non-scientific community. Hawking's health, of course, remains a constant concern, a worry that was heightened in 2009 when he failed to appear at a conference in Arizona because of a chest infection. In April, Hawking, who had already announced he was retiring after 30 years from the post of Lucasian Professor of Mathematics at Cambridge, was rushed to the hospital for being what university officials described as gravely ill. It was later announced that he was expected to make a full recovery.
New words in these passages. Groundbreaking means new, original and advanced. Cosmology means the science of the origin and development of the universe. Accessible to means available to. Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis ALS means a disease that causes the death of neurons which control voluntary muscles. Depicted means described. Noteworthy means worthy of attention because interesting or significant. Extrapolated means launched. Prominence means state of widely known. Overview means summary of a subject. Atop means on the top of. In a nutshell means summarized in a few words. Illustrated means clarify by giving example of. Here, articulate means to express very clearly and fluently. Holy Grail means a thing which is eagerly pursued or sought after. Layout means to outline. Colonize means settle as a colony. Compatible means matched. Inevitable means unavoidable. Spontaneous means self-generated or natural. Now, what is Hawking convinced of? Hawking convinced that time travel is possible and that humans may indeed colonize other planets in the future. Here, chaos means a state of complete disorder and confusion. Invoke means to call on a deity. Blue touch paper means something which causes excitement. Slur means to speak indistinctly so that the sounds run into one another. Look into means to investigate. Opaque means not able to be seen through. Multiple sclerosis means abnormal hardening of body tissue. Atypical means very unusual. Eventually means in the end, especially after a long delay. Diagnose means detection of a medical condition. Devastating means causing a severe shock. Despondent means unhappy and with no hope. Leukemia means a malignant progressive disease in which the bone marrow and the other blood forming organs produce increased numbers of abnormal white blood cells. Relative to means compared to. Tolerable means acceptable. Executed means killed in a planned fashion. Now, when did Hawking first notice his health problems? Hawking noticed his first problems with his physical health while at Oxford and later at Cambridge. Here, poured himself into means got deeply involved with. Diminished means reduced. Ever expanding means quickly increasing. For good means permanently. Tracheotomy means an incision in the windpipe made to relieve an obstruction to breathing. Acclaimed means popular. Peril means serious and immediate danger. Predicament means a difficult situation. Speech synthesizer means an instrument that produces sound electronically. Virtually means almost. Sensor means a device which detects or measures a physical property and records, indicates or otherwise responds to it. Prolific means Intellectually productive. Concern means anxious feeling. Now, in the mid 1970s, what did the Hawkins family do? In the mid 1970s, the Hawkins family had taken in one of Hawkins' graduate students to help manage his care and work. Why was Hawking forced to use a wheelchair? Hawking was forced to use a wheelchair because physical control over his body diminished. What do Stephen Hawking works include? Stephen Hawking works include numerous scientific papers as well as information for the non-scientific community. What remains a constant anxiety? Hawkins' health remains a constant anxiety. Now listen to the explanation. Stephen Hawking is a British scientist, professor and author. His books have helped to make science accessible to everyone. At the age of 21, he was diagnosed with ALS, a disease that causes the death of neurons which control voluntary muscles. He has written or co-written 15 books. In 1988, he published A Brief History of Time. This book became an account of cosmology for many people. It was sold worldwide and translated into more than 40 languages. In 2001, he published a book, The Universe in a Nutshell. Hawking's book, A Brief History of Time, further simplified the central concepts and helped for the development of string theory. These three books are called Holy Grail. He says that time travel is possible and humans may live in the other planets in the future. In September 2010, Hawking spoke against the idea that God could have created the universe in his book, The Grand Design. Hawking challenged Sir Isaac Newton's belief that the universe had to have been designed by God. At the age of 21, he was affected by ALS and doctors gave him 2.5 years to live. Hawking noticed the problem while he was in Oxford when he would trip and fall or slur his speech. He kept these symptoms to himself. His father took note of his condition and took him for the treatment. The doctors did a series of tests. In the hospital, he shared his room with a boy suffering from leukemia. Comparing to him, Hawking's problem was tolerable. Hawking's disease made him to work more. When he realized that he will not live long enough to earn his PhD, he did more research. He was forced to use a wheelchair by 1969. In mid-1970s, he was helped by his student to manage his care and work. He lost his voice in 1985. At that time, one California programmer developed a speaking program that could be directed by head or eye movement. Hawking used it by selecting the words with a handheld clicker. Then, since all controls of his body had gone, he operated it with his cheek muscles attached with a sensor. In 2009, he failed to appear at a conference in Arizona because of chest infection. He was rushed to the hospital because he was gravely ill. It was later announced that he was expected to make a full recovery. English workshop 1. Observe the timeline and search the occurrences according to it. Prepare a chart. January 8, 1942. Stephen Hawking was born. 1969. Forced to use wheelchair. 1970. A graduate student helped manage Hawking's care and work. 1988. Published A Brief History of Time. 2001. Published The Universe in a Nutshell. 2005. Authored A Briefer History of Time. 2009. Hawking failed to appear at a conference in Arizona because of a chest infection. 2010. Hawking spoke against the idea that God would have created the world. 2014. The film The Theory of Everything is released. 2. Make a list of books written by Stephen Hawking. Name of the book, what's in it, topics covered, his contribution to the world. 1. A Brief History of Time. Topics covered, overview of space and time, existence of God and the future, his contribution to the world. An account of cosmology for the masses. 2. The Universe in a Nutshell. Topics, Guide to Cosmology's Big Theories, contribution to the world, illustrated, easier to understand. 3. Name of the book, A Briefer History of Time. Topics covered, touch upon newest developments in the field like the string theory, contribution to the world, simplified the original work's core concepts. 4. Name of the book, The Grand Design. Topics covered, God could not have created the universe. Conclusion, his contribution to the world, the Big Bang was the inevitable consequence of laws of physics and nothing more. 3. Make a list of Hawking's physical inabilities after 1963. A. Could not go anywhere except on a wheelchair. B. An ever-worsening physical state. C. All the time he needed someone to manage his care and work. D. Except for feeding himself and getting out of bed, had need of assistance for virtually everything else. E. Speech increasingly slurred, Finally, lost his voice for good. F. Ability to do his work in peril. 4. Shape your mind. Complete the network of cluster diagram with the name of great personalities and their contribution. Field of excellence. You have to write the great personalities in literature. 3 persons you have to write, and their contribution also you have to write. Okay, this is homework for you. Complete the following work. Stephen Hawking's achievements. One is given for you. Nerves controlling muscles stopped working. Wrote at a prolific rate. Here you can write. Contributed to theories in cosmology even though he was suffering from ALS. Here you can write. Worked as a Lucasian professor of mathematics at Cambridge for 30 years. Here you can write. Written or co-written 15 books. 6. Explain how the life of Stephen Hawking proves the proverb, every cloud has a silver lining. Write it down in your notebook. This is proverb expansion. It is homework for you. 7. Do you agree or disagree with the following statements? Justify your stand or answer by quoting a line from the text. Stephen Hawking was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. Answer. No, I don't agree. The line from the text justifying this stand is eventually. However, doctors did diagnose Hawking with the early stages of ALS. B. Hawking believed that man cannot live in other planets in the future. No, I do not agree. The line from the text justifying this stand is, he has convinced that time travel is possible and that humans may indeed colonize other planets in the future. C. Though Hawking lost control over his body, he writes with a prolific rate with the help of assistants. Yes, I do agree. The line from the text justifying this stand is, through the program and the help of assistants, Stephen Hawking has continued to write at a prolific rate. D. Hawking has written or co-written more than 25 books. No, I do not agree. The line from the text justifying this stand is, over the years, Stephen Hawking has written or co-written a total of 15 books. 8. Following incidents in Stephen Hawking's life are given in jumbled order. Arrange the incidents in proper sequence as per their order of occurrence in Hawking's life. A. Hawking's book, The University in a Nutshell, offered illustrated guide to cosmology's big theories. B. Hawking published the book, A Brief History of Time, that offered an overview of space and time. C. Hawking was unable to attend a conference in Arizona. D. Hawking was diagnosed with ALS while studying cosmology at the University of Cambridge. E. Hawking published A Brief History of Time that contained the newest development. Now the answer will be the first one. This Hawking was diagnosed with ALS while studying cosmology at the University of Cambridge. This will be the first one. Second one is Hawking published the book A Brief History of Time that offered an overview of space and time. This is the second one. Hawking's book The University in a Nutshell offered illustrated guide to cosmology's big theories. This is the third one. Hawking published A Brief History of Time that contained the newest development. This is the fourth one. Hawking was unable to attend a conference in Arizona. This is the fifth one. 9. Fill in the blanks with the proper form of the verbs as per the subject. Mother dash a good meal. Cook cooks. Cooks will be the answer. Mother and her daughter dash a good meal. Cook cooks. Cook will be the answer because two people are there. They. The rise and fall of the empire dash recorded in history is recorded. Neither Ritesh nor Alok dash well play. Either of the two dash guilty, or everyone dash mistakes makes. That news dash published today is 8 lakh rupees dash a big amount. Was the committee dash approved of it. Has the cost of all the goods dash risen. The cost of all the goods dash risen. Has. 10. From the following sentences, underline the nouns and encircle their determinants that specify the noun in a noun phrase. The determinants are given articles, possessive pronouns, demonstratives or quantifiers. Now, he lost his voice for good. So here we have to underline the noun. Okay, voice is the noun. Underline. And his. This is the determinant. Encircle. Over the years, Hawking has written 15 books. Here, years is the noun and the is the determiner. 3. These 3 books articulate his search for science holy grail. So here noun is books and it is having 2 determinants here. 3 the number and these also determinant, and one more noun is there, search. For this the determinant is his, the determiner. A few events prevented him from despondency. Here the noun is events, determiner is a few. That dream made him realize it. Here the noun is dream and determiner is that. Complete the information from following graphic organizer and prepare summary. So here summary maker. Title of the text. What is the title of this lesson? That you have to write. Stephen Hawking. Name of the personality. Same. Stephen Hawking only. Age. Born 8th January 1942. Books. As author. A Brief History of Time. The Grand Design. The Universe in a Nutshell. A Brief History of Time. Black Holes and Baby. universes. Field of excellence. Theoretical physics, cosmology. Achievements. Albert Einstein Award in 1978. Co-founder of Microsoft Research. You have come to know from the text that the theory of everything is a film described the life and work of Stephen Hawking. Watch the film on internet and write a complete review of it. You can take help of the following points while writing the review of the film. Title, characters, story, dialogues, picturization, music, special features if any, opinion or views, message or moral values. This is homework for you.